It is a very huge honor today to have one of my rock star endo idols. You really are. I mean, in your website is rootcanalrockstar.com. This is Charles Goodis from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And you practice out there where my best dental friend in the world, Craig Steichen, lives.
Craig's a great guy.
We went to through dental school together, and he knew I couldn't set up my removable dentures because I just was horrible at it. So he would do mine. And when I would turn it in, the instructor goes, "Man, that is just perfect, Howard. I'm going to give you an A. Tell Steichen he did a great job." True story. Craig Steichen did all my removal lab work. But man, I first heard of you back in the I think it was in the 80s. What year did you get out of school?
I got out in 91.
Okay.
And we met, I think, back in 95.
95? Well, that's part of being 53. Your brain can't remember. I got the CRS and can't remember shit.
Me too.
But you have the you were a pioneer in the Rotary Endo. Now, well, tell him. Let me read your bio. Dr. Goodis received his DDS from the University of Michigan, his GPR residency at the University of Minnesota, and his endodontic residency at the University of Connecticut. His undergraduate major at the University of Michigan was mechanical engineering, which really explains your fascination with rotary instruments.
Just a frustrated engineer that keeps wanting to tinker with stuff.
It was this background combined with his vast experience in endodontics, which led to the development of Edge Endo. His endodontic supply company sells heat-treated NiTi rotary files and thermal obturators for less than half the cost to promote excellence in endodontics. So you got out of endo school in 96.
Yeah, endo school in 96, yeah.
And when did you start experimenting with, well, first of all, what on your journey after endo school did you decide in the middle of Albuquerque, I'm going to make my own endo file?
You know, when even...
Was it during a peyote trip on a mountaintop while elk hunting with Craig Steichen?
Yeah, with Craig and who's the him and Peter Fonda? Who is the they were in New Mexico. What was that? Oh darn it! I'm trying to remember.
I remember, but
the actor.
But basically,
anyways,
Charles Goodis was before he got into Rotary, he's 100% Greek, and he was the one who introduced that if you spray Windex on your endo files, just like John Coyce is 100% Greek, he sprays Windex inside his crowns before he seats them. That's why John Coyce is so good at Crown and Bridge. So, did you see that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, I did.
Did you find it insultory or
Not
funny?
at all. I found it very true.
And do you ever use Windex at home for purposes that it was not?
I really don't. I try to not use Windex anymore.
That movie took a Windex out of your kitchen cabinet.
Yes.
So what on your journey out of endo school made you, or did you start thinking about it during endo school?
A little bit during endo school, and when we first met. You went down and visited John McSpadden back in 95,
right.
And that's when I first met you. And so I was working in John's practice while I was in my endo residency school. And he was just designing the Quantec file. Obviously, this goes back 20 years ago. And as we all know, John's really brilliant. And just being able to talk with him, see how he was launching it, and,
the Quantec.
Yeah, the Quantec.
Now, tell the story, because I just lectured in Tennessee twice this year. And when you go to Tennessee, a lot of those old guys will walk up to you and they'll go, Tennessee, we invented Rotary Endo. And they're claiming that to their homie John McSpadden. Yep. in what is that? Where is he at in Tennessee? It's not Charlotte, it's Chattanooga.
Yeah, John's I think he's still in Chattanooga.
Yeah, so is that true? Did John McSpadden invent Rotary in Chattanooga?
From John was involved with a company called Quality Dental, and they we're all losing our Derek Keith, who was an engineer.
Derek Keith,
and he was an engineer, and Derek started Quality Dental, and Dr. Harmeet Walia went down there. He was the head of endo at Marquette. I'm trying to remember where he's at right now.
What's his name?
Dr. Harmeet Walia.
How do you spell that?
Oh, no, don't hit me too.
Harmeet?
Harmeet, M-E-T, and then Walia, W-A-L-I-A.
Sounds Arabic.
He's Indian.
Indian. Okay, I was
Yeah.
close. I was on the other side of the world.
Sweet man, wonderful person.
And he was the dentist, and
He's an
Derek
endo-
Heath was the mechanical engineer.
Harmeet was an endodontist. He ran the program at Marquette. I think he's running the program at University of Florida right now. And he saw NiTi, orthodontic wire was switching to NiTi. He saw that, and he went down to Tennessee and met with Derek Heath, and they produced the first NiTi endodontic file, and they did some tests.
And they did it at Marquette, or they did it in Tennessee?
And I believe the tests were done at Marquette, but it was manufactured at Quality Dental in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Johnson City, Tennessee.
So
and is that
why-
a suburb of Chattanooga?
Oh no, it's Chattanooga's more towards the west. Johnson City is towards the.
Well, if it was from
towards the Smoky
Tennessee,
Mountains.
I'm pretty sure Al Gore invented it.
Yeah, if it was.
He did this after the internet or before the internet?
No, I think he did this during.
I
What
love.
I know is John. Again, a lot of this is just me here. You know the old stories how it started. I think John had his practice in Johnson City at the time, from what I understand, and he knew Derek Heath, and I think Derek had his he was manufacturing files up in New Jersey, and from what I understand is John said, "Hey, why don't you come down to Tennessee?" And manufacture it. So John and him started really working closely with files. Harmeet came down, Dr. Walia introduced NiTi files, and then John saw that, and I think John and Derek sort of thought, hey, wouldn't this be great to start making rotary files? Because John already had.
So the first NiTi use in endo was actually hand files.
Was a hand file.
That was the first, and that was Quality Dental
It was
out
Quality
of Johnson
Dental.
City.
And then
McSpadden came
the
and
McSpadden
said,
came, and then
now he already had the McSpadden condenser.
Yep.
And what
I
was
think
that?
it was compactor. And what it was is the flutes ran in a reverse direction. So when you would spin it, while the gutta percha was in there, it would melt it and actually compact the gutta percha down into the canal. So instead of, if the flutes were going in a clockwise direction, it would pull the gutta percha out. But John came up with going in a counterclockwise direction. So when it spun, it would actually melt the gutta percha, put it down.
You know what John told me? And by the way, the most successful people make it religion out of availability, and I want to thank you for coming by.
Thank you,
you're
brother.
the CEO of the company. You came by my house on a Saturday morning, and when I got out of school in '87, I was having some endo problems, and I called McSpadden, and he said, "Well, just fly to Chattanooga and stay with me, stay at my house."
John's a wonderful
So I'm like,
man.
"Are you serious?" He says, "Yeah, pick me up in I think it was a Rolls Royce."
Yep.
Pick me up in a Rolls Royce at the airport. I'm like, okay, I'm a 24-year-old punk ass kid.
John knows how to roll.
And I fly to
He knows how to roll.
Chattanooga. Didn't even know where it was on a map. And he picks me up in a Rolls Royce. But he told me on the drive back to his house that that it was the necessities of mother invention. He's a moose of a man. I'm
Huge.
5'7". He's got to be what, 6'6"?
Yes.
He could be a linebacker for Michigan.
He could.
And he said, I couldn't get my fingers back in that mouth. He said, I was trying to make it all through instruments and hand pieces because he said, and I have a 5'7", and when I was little, I grew up 5'6", so I always knitted and crocheted, and I had the fingers for dentistry, and he didn't. So he said this whole thing was out of a necessity of invention.
Yeah, and his work is just beautiful, just beautiful. And so we when I met you, John had already. So then. I don't know what all these names are escaping me all of a sudden because I'm trying to think of.
Well, how old are you? I'm 53. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 50.
You're 50? Well,
because
three more years, buddy, you won't remember your name.
Then Tulsa Dental bought out.
Yeah, now Ben Johnson started with an obturator.
That's what I wanted to go with Ben. So then
Ben Johnson started with an obturator.
So Ben started with an obturator.
He was another
pioneer.
Amazing pioneer. That I called.
Yes.
24 years old, and Ben Johnson said the same thing. He goes, well, you're out there in Phoenix. They got Southwest Airlines. It'll cost you $100. Hop on an airplane. Come to Tulsa.
He's the one who came up with.
Stay at my house.
The profile.
I'll go in there, and this is just a dumbass kid out of dental school, and he was hand rolling those obturators with. He noticed that gutta percha.
Where did he pick that talent up from?
rolling joints, rolling joints, or rolling cigarettes.
I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that.
And he noticed that the gutta percha in his bottom drawer that it got rolled. that he could roll on a file, and he's using that obturator. But how did he make the and that was in Tulsa, which is why they call it Tulsa Dental Products.
Yep.
But how did he go from thermophil obturators into NiTi files? How did he make that jump?
From what I understand is he got to know Derek also. And then Tulsa Dental and Quality Dental merged. John came up with the original profile.
Yeah.
0406 with the large radial lands. Yeah. And they also worked with Dr. Herb Schilder to come up with the Series 29. And it was, that's when I got into dental school endo school, right when
Schilder was Boston?
Yeah, yep.
Boston.
Very, very, obviously very, very famous and very influential endodontist. So they came up with that. Tulsa Dental and Quality Dental merged. Again, I hope I'm getting all these stories right. Ben, Derek, and John. We should bring them in. So they go, oh, Chuck messed that story up. But at least we're trying. I think we're getting pretty close to it. And then Tulsa Dental was bought out by Dentsply.
So then where were you in this journey? So you were John McSpadden's associate. You're in Johnson City.
I would fly in every weekend while I was in endo school. And so I would fly from I would either fly or drive down
from
Connecticut.
Okay,
it was so I'd take
what city was that in?
Hartford.
Hartford. Okay.
So it's in Farmington, but I would go to the Hartford airport, fly down Delta.
So
connect in Atlanta.
So you're probably still an obnoxious Patriots fan.
No, I'm originally from Detroit. So
oh, really?
So I'm
They had a few good games this year.
But we refer to the Detroit Lions as the rebuilding since 1957 Detroit Lions. So yes, I am.
And who was their best running back of all time?
Barry Sanders.
From where I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. Born and raised in Wichita.
I didn't know that.
He's the most famous guy in Wichita.
I know he went to Oklahoma State, but no, I didn't know that.
In Wichita, when you say Barry Sanders, you have to make the sign of the cross.
And he was smart enough, to kind of get out before his knees went bad, and plus the Lions weren't going anywhere anyways because he knew they were rebuilding since 1957.
Yep. So you started flying from Hartford to Johnson City.
Because by then John had his practice in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
So I'd fly down from Hartford, connect in Atlanta back up to Chattanooga, and then I'd work there on weekends. And
work there
doing endo
on patients.
Yeah, on patients.
So John's practice was open Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, when I was working there.
Here's
the great. Do we have the cat in the view now?
Was it Fridays or Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays?
So I would fly down on Fridays, so it'd be Saturday and Sunday. So I'd work Saturday.
So he was open Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And the other genius endodontist in Manhattan, Barry Musakan. One of the first things that got my attention to him, he was talking about his SafeSider file, but I'm sitting here looking at his website and noticed it was open 7 days a week. And I thought, man, you're just a businessman from A to Z.
Particularly when you're in Manhattan, where I'm trying to remember, there's over 100 endodontists. There may be more than that. There's like 7 in Albuquerque, maybe 12 in the whole state of New Mexico. There's maybe 100 to 150 in Manhattan. You need to.
You know what's interesting about Manhattan? If all 7 billion Earthlings lived in the same density as Manhattan, we would all fit on New Zealand.
That's amazing.
All 7 billion people
didn't know that.
in the landmass of New Zealand, if we lived like they did in Manhattan, which is the most amazing city in the world. So you're flying down there to do endo on Saturday and Sunday. Why? Was it for money, or is because you knew this was the hotbed of endodontic?
It was more. I mean, by the time I finished my endo residency, and by the time you got to pay for the flights, because I had to get my Southern dental boards also. By the time I would say I probably broke even, and I knew I was going to end up breaking even. It was more just for the experience to be around someone like John.
Because in Connecticut, you already were aware that McSpadden and Ben Johnson were kind of thinking outside the box.
Yeah, because you have to pick a research project in endo school. So mine was NiTi files were just. It was funny. My mentors, Dr. Lars Spomberg. And Dr. Carmen Safavi in endo at UConn.
What are their names?
Dr. Lars Spomberg.
How do you spell that? Laris, Alaris?
And with an S, and then Spomberg. Spomberg is very famous endodontist. His research is just amazing. I mean, he's got 300, maybe 400 papers published. And Dr. Carmen Safavi, he now runs the program because Dr. Spomberg's retired. But they just threw all these, like all of us back then in '96, Rotary files were just thrown on us. And I was similar to like John. I'm like, my hand hurts when I do hand filing. I jumped on Rotary files like it was the greatest thing in the whole world.
I did my first root canal in '86, and from 1986 to when I did my switch to Rotary, I had a blister on my thumb because I was doing this 2 or 3 or 4 molars a day, and I always had a numb little blister.
Yeah,
and
there was no way I was going to keep doing that. And particularly my hand felt like it was going to fall off. So I really love endo, but I'm going to have to retire at 35 if I don't use rotaries.
Yeah, I got 5 sisters and a gay brother, so I have to get a lot of mani-pedis. And because the options are, you want to go to a movie? No. You want to get a mani-pedi? Okay, I'll do that.
I haven't, but if you want after this, let's get a mani-pedi.
So I've had more mani-pedis with one of my 5 sisters and my gay brother. And I remember one time I was getting a mani-pedi, and the little Vietnamese chick said, "Oh, you're a guitar player. I can tell by your blister." And I'm like, "No, that's from root canals." But I get what you're saying. So
that's what I did. My research project was
on Rotary files.
On Rotary files, they just hit the streets in the endo programs. So from then, I remember I drove down to Johnson City. Derek Heath, who was running Quality Dental,
does he still run it?
No, he doesn't. He now has his own again in Johnson City, DNS Dental for Derek and Steve. Those Derek Heath and Steve Treadway are now partners, and they run DNS Dental in Johnson City.
Steve Treadway?
Treadway.
Is he a dentist?
I don't believe he's a dentist.
So it's 2 mechanical or 2 engineers?
Yeah.
Is that what they are? Mechanical engineers?
And they're just, really been able to.
When did you start your own file? When did?
Oh, then again, do the research project, flying down with John. Then eventually opened up my practice in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Is that where you're from?
No, I'm originally from Detroit.
You're from Detroit. So you just want to get out of the weather?
Really love New Mexico. That did Indian Health Service for a few years up on the Montana, Canadian, North Dakota border. And we get down to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
It's cool. I remember for 30 days it never got above a -30. And then when it got to a -5, I thought it was a spring day.
Straight north of Phoenix is Calgary, and it's about a 20-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you go up around the Grand Canyon, through Bryce Canyon, Salt Lake. Yeah, I mean, that's the prettiest drive.
Pretty.
I mean, flying that in an airplane, it just doesn't do credit. I mean, you just got to drive that.
And the temperature will drop 100
degrees. So you decided that you want to live in Albuquerque.
Yes.
So you just no family, just
no, because I would get down there. No, would get down there for training with Indian Health Service, and found out I really liked Albuquerque. So when I wanted to open my own practice, and as you know, particularly now, it's hard to find places where you can just hang a shingle. So Albuquerque, I knew I could hang a shingle, open up practice, and be busy. So that's why I moved to.
So
Albuquerque.
Did you do demographic research?
Yes.
You were gonna. This is when you're being an endodontist. After endo school, you did Indian public health.
No, right before.
Right before endo school.
Yeah, right before endo school, I did public health, and that's how I get to learn about Albuquerque. So exactly.
But then you went to Connecticut.
Yep.
But then you realized supply and demand mattered, and you thought there was.
And I love the West.
Albuquerque.
Love the West. So you start looking at like Denver, Phoenix, Albuquerque, Dallas, Austin. You just start looking out west, and you start going, even like Missoula, Montana.
Oh yeah.
You're just finding. There's already endodontists there. There's a lot.
And it's so sad because I'm in a dozen dental schools a year, and all those kids that say the same thing. I want to build a dental office that looks out over the ocean and Huffington Beach or whatever the shit.
Yeah, let's be
and it's going to be, and it's like, God. And it's like, I saw Rick Kirshner tweeted yesterday. He goes, my New Year's resolution is I'm going to quit arguing with dental students. And it's like, dude, if you want to go set up where there's a dentist for every 300 people, good luck, but you'll be selling Amway at night.
You have to find. And so Albuquerque, while I love Albuquerque, endodontists mostly moved. I think what happened is the endodontist would come down to Albuquerque, their spouse would come with them, then they'd go fly to Denver, fly to Phoenix, go fly to Dallas, and you're going to go, no, I'm going to go to Dallas, Denver, or Phoenix. And that's so Albuquerque it's a small town. Yeah. Again, love Albuquerque. No sports teams. It's just small. Yeah, it's a mile high up, and I think that's what kept a lot of people out. But so I go, well, I'll go to Albuquerque. I don't have a problem with that. I love the West, and Albuquerque's a great town, and Santa Fe's close. So I that's why I moved.
You know Chris Spear?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris Spear is my class, me and Steichen too. And
really up in Colorado.
Yeah. No, he's up in Santa Fe.
No. But dental school.
We went to UMKC.
Yes.
University of Missouri, Kansas City, and
Chris Spear's a great guy.
Oh my
great
God.
Dentist.
One time we left dental school.
A healthy attitude about life.
He had two BMW 1600s. And we got out of dental school like 5 o'clock on a Friday, and we wild hair up our ass. We were at a bar, and we said, "Let's go home." So we jumped on two BMW 1600s and rode about 150 miles an hour, cutting across Kansas on these 2-lane roads that are flat and you could see forever, and you could just open these bikes up. We rode from Kansas City to his mom's house in Santa Fe before sunup. When we got to her driveway, it was all the stars. That was the most beautiful motorcycle ride I'd ever done.
Fantastic.
And that was, I think, in '86. No helmets, nothing.
Fantastic.
I mean, just crazy.
Because, I know New Mexico, you don't need helmets.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's just amazing out there. Yeah, seeing the sunrise in Santa Fe, beautiful.
So you get out of school and
go to Albuquerque.
96. Go to Albuquerque. When do you start playing with files?
So I start thinking that, boy, I think I can do this better. From your paper in grad school. Yeah, just from writing that, and just now that I'm working, I'm going, they should do it this way. They should do it that way. They should do it this way. So finally I said, okay, let's.
And go through those subtle points. What I mean, some could say, well, did you do it because you had a passion of the file, or did you just thought it was a good business opportunity?
No, it was more just as I'm using it, I'm going, why aren't they doing it this way?
So explain
why
that.
Aren't they doing?
Go over that thinking.
So when I'm feeling it going into the canal, I'm going, there's got to be a way to make this cut better, be more flexible, and just prepare the canal better. So I start looking at, different flute designs, different how the pitch should be opened. So you just start experimenting, and finally I go, I need to make some prototypes. So then back in, I think in about 2002, that's when I finally.
How the hell do you make a nickel NiTi prototype endo file?
Well,
did you go to Denver? Did you have Quality Dental make them?
Well, Quality Dental again. They're in Johnson City, and by then Tulsa Dental, which was owned by Densply. So by then you had pretty much just Tulsa Dental and Cybron making files.
Cybron, which is Kerr, owned by Danaher.
Yeah, which my advice to them would be, I love the Kerr name, but you changed it to Cybron, and all the kids for the last 20 years are used to Cybron rotary files. Now you switched it back to Kerr. I think from branding yourself. It's like, they should keep it Cybron.
Yeah.
Even though Kerr's a 100-year-old name, the last 20 years, nobody knows who Kerr's is. They know
I remember
who Cybron is.
3M changed Vitramer to Reliax, just out of the blue. Went from Vitramer to Reliax. And every dentist on Dental Town, whenever they talked about Reliax, would call it Vitramer for about a decade.
Yeah. But now Kerr, they were pretty much the two players. And contacting them, they weren't too much interest. They had their own visions where they wanted to go.
And there was a lot of big patents on all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember back in the day when Ben Johnson was out, he used to. I heard him say, "I own all the patents on endo files." So was that true, or did they just eventually expire?
No. After my brother-in-law worked for a large patent firm, And
Really?
he connected me with someone in their office, and so,
In Detroit?
No, out in New York.
Oh.
Out in New York. My wife is from New York, and her sister married a patent attorney, and so it got me really into trying to understand patents. So I spent a couple of years just digesting all the patents out there, and
On endo files.
On endo files.
And who held most of those patents?
A lot were by Derek Keith. A lot were by Derek Keith held a lot. John McSpadden held a lot. Ben Johnson held a lot. But after just looking at them, it seemed pretty clear to me that you could make a NiTi rotary file.
That wouldn't break. That could get around their patent.
That didn't infringe on their patents.
But about when were all those endo file patents in place? Because I keep hearing that most all of them are expiring. Like even this year will be some of the last.
Those are all over about 20 years ago. So
all those NiTi patents were placed 20 years ago or expired 20 years.
Yeah, they were all in place. They all were granted in the early 90s. Mid-90s.
And how long's a patent?
Usually it's about 20 years.
Usually about 20 years? Unless you're the recording industry in America who went to Congress and got theirs extended to 99.
You got a little longer.
Yeah.
So most of those have been expired. And so when I launched my first file with guidance back in the mid-2000s, like 2004, 2005. So that was my first endodontic company, was with Guidance Endo, and we had
and that was all your company.
That was all my company, yes.
And so why did you change the name?
There was Dentsply and myself. We got into because again they felt they had certain patents which I disagreed that we were in any way infringing. We sort of went back and forth
for years, didn't you?
For years and years.
How many years and years?
I think about 3 or 4.
And then you won that, right?
Then there was a mutual
a settlement,
a mutual understanding.
A mutual understanding where the money went from Dentsply to you.
Just a mutual understanding.
Well, you can't say anything, right?
Just a mutual understanding.
But can I just say all the rumors are that they had to give you a chunk of change?
Those may be the rumors, but there was just a mutual understanding.
But so then when that was over, you changed the name to Guide.
Then when that was done, because it was such a long process, you kind of I wanted to step back and just regroup. So but after about 6 months.
That was as long as you could take a vacation. 6 months. Another crazy dentist engineer. Yeah, I'm going to retire. 6 months later. Okay, what's next? I tried retirement. What's next?
So then it was, why don't, I still had my endo practice because I enjoy doing endo. Would I love to be a center fielder for the Detroit Tigers? Yes. Would I love to play quarterback for the Detroit Lions? Yes, but it just didn't quite work out that way. But I found...
Would I like to have hair? Yes.
but did I find I can do a pretty good root canal, and I enjoy doing it. And as you know, just like you're still practicing dentistry, you don't have to practice dentistry, but we just do it because it's what we do.
I know.
It's we do.
On New Year's Eve, we were all supposed to leave at noon, and at 10 afternoon, some 61-year-old man that I've known forever walked in, and he's just, holding his face. And my youngest son, Zach, was assisting me. And I said, well, hell yeah, we'll see you.
Of course.
I was there with my youngest baby, and we do a root canal for an hour and a half. And I told the guy, I said, this is my son. I said, do you care if I really explain what I'm doing to my son? And he's like, oh, I think it's so cool that it's with you.
That's great.
But I sat there and lectured endo to my baby, and I was doing this root canal, and it's like I was getting him out of pain. I was fixing his tooth. He was going to have a miserable New Year's Eve. And I got more satisfaction that day from noon till 1:30 than anything I did on New Year's Eve.
You were helping
someone. And who the hell If that doesn't turn you on, you should get out of healthcare, get out of teaching, get out. You know what I mean?
The number one thing is helping your patients.
Yeah.
That's got to be what jazzes you up. That's got to be your passion. Again,
and then we filled it with Sargenti, which you taught me. And I pushed it down with the McSpadden condenser, like John McSpadden, you know what I mean? I got a nice bolus of paraformaldehyde into the inferior alveolar canal, and I don't think it feels anything. You remember teaching me all that? By the way, can you believe last year I saw another $1 million lawsuit paid with the use of Sargenti? It was in Kansas where a bolus went out the end, pickled the whole inferior alveolar. It's amazing how you still see that stuff. Now, is Endodontics in Albuquerque, is it gone, or do you still, is there anyone still placing it?
I from what I understand, there's a few dentists that will place it. Some use it as a sealer. Some use it as a permanent filling. It's not too many, but it's out there. And
so I always want.
I don't think the risk reward.
I want to ask you. Good. So Angelo Sargenti, his life. Do you think it was a great thing because it saved millions of teeth, or do you think it was do you think his whole life and what he did out of Italy, do you think he saved millions of teeth around the world, or do you think the whole deal was a step backwards? Do you think Angelo Sargenti was one step forward, two steps back, or how would you describe his?
Now, being an endodontist, first thing when you get into endo school, you read his book, his N2 book. You read it, you digest it, and then
what year was that written?
What year? I can't remember if it was in the 50s or the 60s.
And what did
I think it might be the
60s
60s.
again?
I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm 50.
It's something weird.
Yeah. I remember.
So in endo school, you read Angelo Sargenti's book?
Oh yeah, we read it and then we burn it.
Yeah.
So in other words, not figuratively, but the point is, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I come from as an endodontist, we're going to come from a very jaded way of looking.
Do you remember the endodontist rock star out of Dana Point, California, G. John Schoeffel?
Yeah.
He actually, the only reason he went to endo school is to teach those son of a bitches how Sargenti's better. And then they reschooled him, and it took him. He said it took about a month before he realized that he was wrong.
Yeah.
But that's why he went to endo school. He was going to take Sargenti to the endo program.
There's, again, some interesting properties about it. It's just, again, the risk reward, the risk gets, I think, just a little too high.
Well, I think to sum up Sargenti's deal is, God bless him if he saved a bunch of teeth or whatever, but when people tell you I did Sargenti for 20 years and it worked great, that's because they were cleaning and shaping the canal really well.
Yes.
Because it's not what they're obturating with. But we need to stay on track. So what exactly? So now you closed guidance and now you opened. Is it
Edge
Endo?
Yep.
But
Edge
your
Endo.
website, is it Edge Endo or Root Canal
Well,
Rockstar?
we also have on there because people like a forum, to showcases and talk. So that's where we just came up with Root Canal Rockstar. Was that if you want
and
if
how
you
many
want to
and
showcases.
how many is it mostly general dentists or endodontists?
Oh, for Edge Endo, we have over 1,000 endodontists and 10,000 general dentists are our customers right now.
Okay, Edge Endo, you have 1,000 endodontists.
Yeah, as our
out of how many?
5,000.
Out of 5,000 U.S., how many in the world?
The world we're only selling U.S. and Canada.
Okay.
We do some distribution. You have to know endodontists. There's 5,000 endodontists in the U.S. and Canada, but in the world, there's really not that many endodontists.
Well, the United States is pretty much the only one that really into the specialty thing.
Yes.
When you go to most other countries, they don't really have that.
Correct.
I mean, I own OrthoTown, so there's like 10,500 orthodontists in the United States, but the whole world is only like 17,000. So you can't even double the U.S. specialist. I mean, whatever the U.S. is, which is only 5% of the world's population, double that number, and that's over the max. So
and it's probably even reverse in the U.S. or the U.S. has probably 5,000, and probably the rest of the world probably only has 2,500.
So rootcanalrockstar.com? That's more a message board community.
Yes.
And how many dentists you had on that?
I think a couple thousand.
Couple thousand. Yeah, I always see those. And they're posting cases and sharing
Yes.
cases and all that stuff. And so when did Edge Endo open?
So Edge Endo was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And what is your file system?
The file system, we have the Edge file, which is an 0406 system. And in that, we also have a reverse fluted one that we call the X1. So that
reverse flute.
So that would fit. So if you're like a Wave 1 user, you could use our Edge file X1, and it's again half the cost, even less than half the cost.
So you've always been at half the cost, right?
Yes.
So why? So the only secret, Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airlines said, look, the only secret to lower price is lower cost. So Southwest Airlines, they took out the meals. They only fly one plane. So how can you make, would you say your average endo file is how much cheaper than the ones that everyone's buying?
Typically, average endo file might be $10, $11. Ours is under $4.
So the only secret to lower prices is lower cost. How do you make it for $4?
Oh, I would say everybody's making it for
$1 a piece.
For a similar.
And what do you think? What do you think everybody's making it for a cost on a file?
I think it's probably somewhere between $1 to $2.
Yeah, a buck.
It's just
to $2.
When you have.
Now, do you sell direct or do you go through?
We sell direct.
Now, see, that's a big crazy thing, because what does Patterson, Shine, Benco, Burkhardt, what does the average dealer mark everything up when they buy?
From what I understand, they usually want a 30 to 40%, maybe even a 50% increase.
Right. Yeah. And that's 30, 40, 50%. So just selling direct, you could almost get from 10 to 5.
The main
and interesting, Dentsply, when they bought Tulsa Dental Product, they told Patterson and Shine, no, that's a direct company. We're leaving that baby direct. We're not gonna.
So really, the major players in endo all sell direct.
And who are they? Dentsply,
Tulsa
Tulsa
Dental,
Tulsa Dental direct,
Brasler, and Kerr Cybron. They do sell. Kerr Cybron may sell through distribution, but pretty much most of their sales, from what I understand, are direct.
So you can buy all the stuff direct from Cybron Kerr.
And
is it Cybron Kerr or Kerr Cybron?
That's what I'm saying. I'm struggling with. I think they should just call it
Cybron.
The and then there's us.
And there's us, which is Edge
Endo.
Endo.
And pretty much, I expect by the end of 2016, we should pass Kerr Cybron, and we'll be the third largest seller in the U.S.
So number one would be Tulsa. Number two would be
Brasler.
Really? Did you ever meet Peter Brasler?
No.
God, he was an amazing man.
No, I didn't.
That was a loss when he passed away. So you're fourth now, and you think you're about to be third?
Oh, we'll be third by the. I
would think if you're, would you say you're average half the price?
Oh yes, and I think the most important thing is not only half the price. I think the big kicker is, I know like from cyclic fatigue, which is a direct link to fracture rates, longevity of the file. Ours lasts twice as long as anyone else. Any other file on the market, and it's more flexible. So
is breakage still an issue with dentists? Let's not talk about general dentists, because they don't know what they don't know. Let's talk about, you got 1,000 endodontist customers. I mean, I think the fact that you have 1,000 endodontists buying, is that what you said?
Correct.
So you got 1,000 endodontists buying for you. That's probably your number one accolade going right now. Do those 1,000 endodontists, do they still tell you that between Tulsa, Brasler, Kerr, and Edge Endo, is file breakage still an issue?
Even as an endodontist, if you may only break one or again, you have to look. They're doing 2,000 cases a year. So
damn. So how many's that a day? There's two. Well, there's two. The average American 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year is 2,000 hours. So they're doing, they're doing a molar 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 50. Yeah. Okay. So the average endodontist doing 2,000.
By about 2,000 root canals a year. Okay. They'll say they're going to get a few breakages a year.
And what's a few?
1 to 3.
So they're getting one to 3.
About 1 out of 1,000. So ours would be, but why don't you, by having twice the cyclic fatigue of anything out there?
Does it have twice cyclic fatigue?
It has by far twice the cyclic fatigue as vortex.
If you spray Windex into the canal, sorry, maybe I didn't know. I didn't know that joke was going to run my cat off. Now I feel horrible. Well, we know the cat's not Greek. So is that as a function of the metal composition of the nickel titanium?
Because ours is heat treated.
Okay, explain that. What does that mean? When you're done,
So after the file is grounded, made, produced, put the flutes in it, then you heat treat it at a higher temperature.
Okay, let's even back up from that. So rumor has it that or culture has it that NiTi was invented by NASA. That when we were little, if you bent a copper pipe, it stayed bent. If you bent an iron pipe, it stayed bent. But NASA figured out if you added nickel to that copper pipe and bent it, it would come back.
It was actually the naval ordnance. Dr. Fred Wang, who is a good friend of mine, actually, now I'm going to sound like Al Gore, but no,
Fred Wang invented it?
Fred Wang.
Is he still alive?
He's still alive.
Holy moly.
We talk.
I want to podcast that dude.
Yeah. Fred, right now, he's in, he finally sold his company. He's been working in Taiwan as a consultant. He's about 80. We became pretty good friends, and he liked me because I was about to say I'd let him win
was
a golf.
Was it NASA? It was the Navy?
It was the naval ordnance.
And what did they need it for?
They didn't need it really for anything. They were just messing around.
R&D.
You know, they're all just 20-year-old kids with PhDs.
And they did invent the internet. They truly did. I mean, the internet was first invented it was a military solution. Washington was afraid that if the Russians attacked first and blew the phone lines from D.C. to NORAD, that they couldn't even call on strike back. So they invented a way where they could take a message, chop it up into 100 pieces, send it out over any available telephone wire that was still out there, and then reassemble it at the back end.
It wasn't Al Gore.
It wasn't Al Gore, but it was the military. So, when all these
fascinating.
people think that government is so useless, like, why do you think government's useless? They invented the internet. They sounds like they invented NiTi. You know what I mean? A lot of R&D stuff comes out of government R&D.
There's an amazing amount of things that come out of the government.
So he invented. So they were just playing around in a research lab.
And
explain what NiTi does and how is your metal different? Is it the different percentages of nickel versus titanium?
Everyone pretty much gets their nickel titanium from the same source. And
and you're buying a block, like a
wire.
A blank wire.
Yeah.
And everybody's getting that from the same source. And what is the metal composition? What percent is that nickel and titanium?
About 55 to 45 between nickel and titanium.
55 nickel and 45 titanium?
I think it's the other way around.
Or 45 nickel and 55 titanium?
Correct. And
then you take those blanks and then you mill them.
Yeah, and then you mill them.
And are you milling them yourself in Albuquerque?
No. We have... I have a company in Johnson City, Tennessee. So everybody's got a company in Johnson City.
So that's
it's sort of like Detroit.
The cluster effect, yeah. Yeah, you see that in most manufacturing. Like all the movies are in Hollywood, all the cars in Detroit. It sounds like all the Endophiles are out of Johnson City, Tennessee.
Yeah, and Kerr makes theirs in Mexico, somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula. I can't remember. So then after they're made, then they are heat treated. So then we heat treat.
And you're the only one that heat treats afterwards?
No, the DNS heat treats, Tulsa Dental heat treats, we heat treat. Those are the ones that I'm aware of that sell heat treated NiTi files. I think Coltine Whale Dent may heat treat a file. I can't recall the name.
But why do you think yours has less cyclic fatigue?
Great. The cyclic fatigue, all the studies have shown, you're putting it in a block or you're putting it so it has a bend in it, and then you're just running it. And ours will go almost 700 seconds, whereas the next highest, which would be either Pro Taper Gold or Vortex Blue, will do about little over 300.
And these are independent, done at dental schools or factories?
Ours was done in-house, and then the ones that have been done independently, like I know University of Florida, Baylor has done studies, and they've confirmed the same results.
So you have less cyclic fatigue, you're half the cyclic fatigue, and you're half the price.
Yeah.
So is that why you got 1,000 endodontists buying it from you?
It's more flexible. I know it's a better file. I know by having a cyclic fatigue rate where it's less likely to break.
Okay, my job
more
is
flexible.
My job is is try to guesstimate what these thousands of homies are out there thinking, and I'm just going to ask you the most controversial questions.
Please do.
Single use throwaway, or can you autoclave them and reuse them if you don't want to have a file break?
You can autoclave and reuse them. I may now again do like most file companies. Do we advocate single-use files? Yes, but I'll use a file on 3, maybe 4 molars.
Really?
See,
in my walnut brain,
fatigue.
I won't do that because I don't want a file to break.
And there's nothing wrong with throwing away right away. And that's why we just tell everybody, go ahead. But I just find
But
me personally, with the Edge files, with their the high cyclic fatigue rate,
next question.
They'll go on and on and on.
Next question. Which file is most likely to break? Is it the 6, 10, 15, or the big dogs 35, 40?
The reason why the big dogs will break more is just when they're going around a curve. I don't know how well this is showing up on video, but when it's going around a curve.
90% of all of our listeners are sound only.
Okay.
So
when it's going around a curve, because it's just so fat, that metal, the outer part of the metal is getting stretched more as it's going around a curve. Whereas if you take like a 1502, it goes around a curve, that outer surface isn't getting stretched very much. Whereas you take, let's say, a 4008, because it's just fatter on the outside, you bend it, the outer surface gets stretched more. That's where breakage occurs.
What is the most commonly broke file?
I would say, well, again, you have to look at what's the most commonly used file too. Like 2506s, I would say are probably. I don't know if there's been a study, but I just find in my own practice when people are sending me cases where a file broke, it seems to be like 2506s, just because that's a very common file to use.
A 25.
25, and then an 06. And where it usually is breaking is in merging canals. This is what most people, if people would look at, it's usually they're break because they take the file down the mesial buccal of the lower molar, then down the mesial lingual. They merge, and when they merge, it takes a sharp hook when it merges into that other canal. So if you want to reduce file breakage to, I think, almost zero, I'm going to prop up my file, use our file because it works so much better than everybody else.
And it lasts 700 seconds?
700 seconds compared to the next one, which is about 330. Whereas you look at like Vortex, non-heat treated Brasser, that only goes like about 70, 80 seconds. But you also don't take the files into merging canals. In other words, when you're taking your glide path, you can tell out of a mesial buccal or mesial lingual which is the most patent, which goes down easier. Whichever goes down easier, take that file to length. The other one is taking a sharp curve where it's merging. Only take your rotary files down to that merging point. That'll knock your fracture rate down to zero.
Which teeth are most common where there's this scenario?
It's the lower molars. I'm finding lower molars is where I'm seeing it the most, and then upper molars between MB1 and MB2. But it's usually these merging canals. If people would just not take these rotaries into merging canals, again, find which is the most patent, which is the easiest to go down, and then the other one, only take it down to that merger point. I think it'd be a huge benefit. The files just aren't built to be able to hit that merge, then it bounces off the side of the other canal, and then it goes straight. That's pretty rough. You're talking about maybe there's only 2 millimeters at the apex where it's doing that.
What file length would you say this is? Only on a hard speaks you get to look at the ass of the cat in your face.
Isn't that like Dumb and Dumber 2? Where they say, "What'd you call your cat?"
So these endodontists, what percent? I think the most interesting thing. I don't know if you know this, but endodontists only work on people not born in the United States because all the general dentists tell me they've never had a root canal fail, knock on wood.
Everyone.
And then I see 5,000 endodontists.
One.
And what percent of these 5,000 American endodontists, what percent of their practice is retreats?
It's probably from when I remember the last study, it's in the high 20%, maybe almost 30% of our
So if
practice.
none of the 150,000 dentists
None
had a
of them do.
failure and 5,000 dentists spent 20% of the time retreats, that means these are all immigrants that came here from other countries. What
Yes.
is the most common country for these immigrants to come to you from, since Americans have never had a failed endo? So my question is, when you see failed endo, what's the low-hanging fruit? You could tell my homies. What's the low-hanging fruit of why these root canals fail? What do you think the
Number one
common
reason is a missed canal. It's really a missed canal, that it's difficult to know on upper molars and lower molars. Sometimes there's 2 canals. And then on lower molars, or did I say on premolars? Sorry. Upper and lower premolars, there's 2 canals. Then on molars, I'm finding people are missing the second distal canal a lot.
On mandibular second molars?
And mandibular first and second molars. So
Yeah.
so on
Would you say-
lower
would
molars,
you say
they're just
lower
missing that
molars-
second canal.
would you
Upper
say-
molars, they're missing MB2.
Would
That's
you
what's
say
causing it.
the on the lower molars that on the distal canal? Do you think the distal canal is 1 canal sometimes 2, or 2 canals sometimes 1?
I think we should be focused that it's 2 canals that go into 1, because then
2 canals sometimes 1.
that might be merging into 1. If everyone was thinking there's 2 canals, because even when it's just 1 true canal, there's usually a large fin that people aren't picking up, and it's got a lot of crud in it that we have to take care of. So you should always be thinking 2 canals, and you want to just flare it out buccal and lingually, because we're missing these fins that are very common. So I would say missed canals in the lower molars, in the distal. And if it's not 2 canals, then it's 1 canal that has a fin that's almost like a second canal that we need to pick up. Maxillary molars, again, MB2s a lot we retreat.
And
so it's missed canals.
What percent of the time do you think a maxillary molar has an MB2 that goes all the way to apex?
If we could use an electronic microscope and dissect it, do I think it's 100%? Yes, I think it's 100%. I know even on a good month, am I getting 70, maybe 75%? Yes. Am I getting 100%? No.
And is these doing a molar endo? Some people are arguing that standard of care is take a CBCT, then you could 3-dimensionally see where all the anatomy was. What do you think of that statement? What percent of the molars of these 1,000 endodontists buying from you, or the 5,000 endodontists in the United States, what percent of the time are they getting a 3-dimensional X-ray before they treat to 2 to look at this anatomy?
I don't think it is standard of care where every single tooth is getting a 3-dimensional X-ray. I would say, talking to endodontists, there are some that are doing 100%, but I don't even think 50% are doing 100%. Usually, if it's a straightforward case, we're just using a traditional.
But there are
X-rays.
some endodontists doing 100%.
Some are doing 100%. But I was going to go back to, even if you see it on a 3-dimensional X-ray, it can be incredibly hard to find, even if you see it on the 3-dimensional X-ray.
Yeah.
We all know there's MB2s and there's MB3s even, and sometimes MB4s. It's just, and we even know the location. We have high-powered microscope. We're using ultrasonic to find it. It's when you're going down the canal, how far are you going to go? Because usually it'll be calcified to where you're like, I might perf, or I'm weakening the root, and it's again that cost-risk ratio. Whereas if you're hogging out too much of that mesial root to go find an MB2 or 3 that just can't, like I said, that 25% where I don't find them, I don't want to overhog out that root, because then it can lead to failure due to fracture or a weakened root. So these are always going through my mind. I don't think there's any endodontist getting 100% of.
I was born and raised in Kansas, and I've only heard the hog out in Kansas.
Yeah.
Is your mom or dad from Kansas?
No,
Where did you learn that term hog out?
No,
Is
that
a mechanical engineering
Yeah,
term?
I believe it is.
Same question with the microscope. Some people are saying, standard care microscope. You need to go to St. Louis and get a $15,000 global microscope.
I do love global.
Yeah.
I do love global.
And why do you love Global more than German Zeiss? Is it just because it's lower cost?
One, the lower cost. Two, the Zeiss, again, amazing microscope. It's just, boy, it seems like something right out of Hunt for Red October, where it is like, it's a serious scope.
I don't know why any
And
dentist
I love
would
those
want
little
a
globals.
Porsche if they could buy a Zeiss microscope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be.
It is beautiful.
How much is the Zeiss and how much is the Global?
Global now, I think you can even get down in the low teens.
Right.
The Zeiss is going to be well up in the high teens and the 20s, and sometimes.
So it's not that big a difference then.
It's not that big. It might be a $10,000 difference, but still.
Well, you said.
It could be in the low teens to the difference or the high teens, and then if you want a real tricked out Zeiss.
Yeah. And you do.
If you want the whale tail on the back.
Dude, that's the coolest thing. Who needs a girlfriend if you could get a tricked out Zeiss microscope? But same question. What percent of these 5,000 endodontists? What percent of the molars are they busting out a microscope?
There's not a case that I don't use the microscope now because I think it's that important. I would say, when I'm talking to other dentists, I would think on a molar case, I think probably 80% are busting out their scope. It's just part of what they do.
So then can a general dentist do quality endo if they're not going to get have access to a CBCT in their office if they need it, or pull out a microscope if they need it?
I think you can still do high quality root canals without three-dimensional x-rays, without a scope. I think at least if you had six times loops, I think it's important. I think it's a little rough with your bare eye, particularly if you're in your 50s like us, to be able to find a second distal. I think it's rough. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I know some dentists that do amazing work, don't use a microscope, but I just think if you can have a scope.
Does Steichen do molar endo?
I think he does.
And does he do that?
Yeah.
The only thing he ever talks about is the Cerac machine. Oh my God! I think someday he's just gonna marry it. I literally think he's gonna go down the aisle with a Cerac machine and just marry that guy. He only has one subject, and that's Cerac. But so what percent of the bacteria, virus, fungus infection is removed by mechanical engineering files?
Probably half.
Half.
Probably.
So
half.
then these homies. When they think they got it all cleaned out, that's just access to get the disinfectant out.
You've got it. It really. I know Dr. Buchanan used to talk a lot about, and he probably still does, about root canals or file shape, irrigants clean, and I know some endodontists disagree with that.
He would say what?
Rotary files shape, disinfectants clean.
Right.
I mean,
But that's fact, isn't it?
I think it is. Some endodontists, I don't know why we're messing with semantics. Yes, a rotary file will clean half of the bugs out. But
so
you need
what
to
was you
irrigate.
saying? Rotary files.
So file shape, irrigants clean.
Well, that's a fact.
I think that is, but
I mean, if you have a problem with those 4 words, you're kind of not right in the head.
There are endodontists who go, I think you're simplifying it a little, but I think we're just playing with words, playing with semantics. Is that you need to irrigate, and again, irrigation is you've heard it over and over. That's really the next frontier. Is that that's something I'm thinking about a lot on how to get the irrigation. So
is the gold
even better.
standard still just the $1 gallon of bleach that you buy at the grocery store?
So I'd say one, you use liquid EDTA, 70% liquid EDTA to get rid of the smear layer first. So after you've completely shaped and cleaned, now shaped. Like I like to shape completely with 17% liquid EDTA because it has a more lubricating effect, which makes the files easier to go down, easier to shape, less likely to ledge, less likely for fracture. So when I'm making my glide path with hand files, or I'm using rotary glide paths, or I'm using my rotary files, all I do is 17% liquid EDTA.
And why would you use that instead of 100% KY jelly? I stunned him. I stumped him.
I do find that I don't have any experience, at least with root canals, with the KY jelly.
But what you like about the EDTA is the lubricant.
Much better.
And is that because does that help you so you don't have file breakage?
It'll help. It helps reduce the stress on the file.
Okay.
So it
now,
also allows it to go down easier. It's just
explain for the homies. With that many thousands of dentists, someone doesn't know what EDTA is. So explain what EDTA is.
Oh well, I mean, you can get liquid. What it does is it has a more lubricating effect.
But what is EDTA?
Now you're busting my chops because I'm about to say, dang, what is the four initial? I can't remember.
But I mean, generically, is it a disinfectant?
No,
It's a lubricant.
All it is a lubricant.
What was that other lubricant back in the day that we'd always use? It was that little
RC Prep.
RC Prep.
Yeah, RC Prep is a gel. It's a gel.
Was that EDTA?
Yeah, it's a 17% gel EDTA.
RC Prep.
Yeah, and
Do they still sell RC Prep?
Yes, and what I like to use is at least some form of RC Prep. So I put it on the file. That's like your KY jelly.
Yeah.
Then what I'll do is I'll put the liquid inside of the canal.
So who owns RC Prep?
I can't remember.
Huh, man, that's going back.
But there's
so now do you sell EDTA?
We sell liquid EDTA, and we also sell the gel EDTA,
which would be like an RC Prep.
Would be like an RC Prep.
Okay, so then you've got your mechanical engineer. You prepared the canal, which is basically, in my opinion, all that does is get you a shape so that you can get the disinfectant in there. Is that what you're thinking?
Right on.
Okay, so now let's switch to. Really, the only, dentists, they always want to talk about, when you're at a bar with a bunch of dentists, they always want to talk about what you obturate the canal with. And it's like, dude, it's not what you put in, it's what you take out.
I agree.
So you got your canal shaped, and now you're ready to do the whole root canal, which is to disinfect it. How do you disinfect it?
Now 100% the disinfecting. So what I'll do is I'll do one more rinse of 17% EDTA because it gets rid of the final smear layer. The smear layer is just when we're cleaning the canals out, we're just putting this swath of dentin, just coating the side of the canal. So I want to get that out of there to open up the dentinal tubules. So studies have shown if you can get rid of the smear layer first before you use your sodium hypochlorite, you'll get rid of more bugs. That's just basically it. So I'm going to rinse for about 1 minute with 17% EDTA.
Rinse for 1 minute.
In between each of the canals. So I'm just rinsing, boom, boom. I might go 50, if it's a four canal molar, I'll rinse for maybe 15 seconds in each canal. But it's usually like 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds.
When you're rinsing, though, the cannula of that needle, what percent of the way down the prepared canal are you getting?
I'm still keeping it about 3 millimeters short.
3 millimeters short.
I'll keep it about 3 millimeters short.
Okay.
So then what I'll do is either I'll take ultrasonics. There's also different brushes. Like I think like the endo activator that Dr. Ruddle has come up with. I think that works well.
Cliff Ruddle.
Yeah, Cliff.
And his wife Phyllis, who's adorable.
And they're wonderful people. And then you have Vista Dental. They also have like an endo activator. There's also different ways to get the liquid down the canal. There's different lasers.
Are you still talking about EDTA?
So yeah, there's still EDTA because all of them I'm going to use either ultrasonics, something like an endo activator, some sort of brush or mechanism to now go all the way down the canal to get the fluid down the canal because I'm keeping it about 1 millimeter. I'm keeping it about 3 millimeters short of the apex. So I'm going to use some sort of mechanical device
with EDTA
in there to get it down the rest of the way.
Okay.
So after I've rinsed it, then I'll use the device in there to get it down there. So that all takes about a minute. Then I'm going to rinse that out with sodium hypochlorite. And I'll do the same thing with sodium hypochlorite. And usually the sodium hypochlorite, now the times vary differently. I usually like it in there about 5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, Dr. Buchanan
says 1 hour.
Yeah, he'll talk about an hour.
Yeah. And since that's the only way you're treating the other 50%, do you think that's the most important step of the root canal?
I think it's the most important step of the root canal. Yeah. Then I like to.
I'm just going to tell. I'm just going to tell you what they're saying on the message boards.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they won't say it on the message boards, but they'll tell it to me. you know.
It's like Mark Twain said, people, it's not what they say, it's what they think. Because we all say the right stories, but then what we really think is completely different.
Well, when you're on a fishing boat with them out in the middle of, catching marlins out there, they'll say things like, dude, after you do a root canal and you file that out and you pack that shit, it's cut off from nutrients, anything in there would just be like throwing a live person in a casket and burying him. It's all going to die anyway.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
And I wouldn't agree with that.
You would or wouldn't?
I would not.
Okay.
I would not. We need to be very active with trying to get as much of the bugs out of there as we can. And I think when you're using EDTA, then you're rinsing with sodium hypochlorite. Then I like to use a chlorhexidine rinse at the very end, and that chlorhexidine rinse will stay in the canal even once it's rinsed out. It's in the dental tubules and it's killing bacteria for weeks. So that's how I like to finish my rinsing with it.
And then obturating, I want to get right to the controversial stuff. I never see people arguing about whether you should use hot gutta percha, single cone, lateral cone.
Endodontists do.
It seems like
it's a huge deal.
But where my general dentist homies are always arguing about is whether or not you can use a single cone carrier with gutta percha on it. Some people say the endodontists hate that stuff. Ben Johnson's term fill. Other endodontists tell me that, dude, if you can't get a carrier-based gutta percha out, then you're not even an endodontist. What is your? Some dentists just say, God, it is so easy to take a single carrier gutta percha. Yeah. Boom. Is that okay or is that not okay?
We even sell our Edge Fill is we sell a plastic core and we also sell a gutta percha thermal carrier. And
you heat those up in an oven?
Heat them up in an oven just like you do with the thermofill. And
because some endodontists say that actually works better in really curved canals.
I like thermal carrier obturation.
So that's what you use?
I use thermal carrier, but I also, because...
So thermal carrier is the generic term for gutta percha around a carrier?
On
a stick?
Correct.
Corn dog on a stick?
Correct.
Was the word corn dog already taken? So you
that was... So I would say...
Isn't a hot dog just a thermal carrier for cornbread?
It is. I don't think it tastes as good. But I would say I probably I'll use that on half the cases because we sell it. And the other half I use warm down pack.
Okay, then I got to ask you another. I'm going just knocking off the controversies. It seems like they're all split on. Are they an apical barbarian where if you don't get a puff of sealer out the apex, you didn't get it all out? And then there's the pulp lovers who always are real anal about staying 0.5 millimeter short, and they really want to, prepare a short deal. So, are you an apical barbarian where you just like to get patency and make sure when you're done there's sealer out the end? Or are you a pulp lover and like to stay 1 millimeter short of the apex and preserve all that pulp?
I don't think long term it matters. I've seen so many endodontists, so many general dentists do it either way. I don't see the cases being different. Myself, I've always gotten a puff and I've been a pulp lover and kept a little bit. I don't see a difference. I think we're talking about less than 1 millimeter difference. And it's sort of like the NFL and football. A guy will run the ball, gets tackled. They pretend like they know where he went down, so they spot it. Then a ref, underhand, throws it 20 yards to another ref to the hash, and then he tries to spot it. And then you've got the chain gang. They're trying to figure out where it should be. And then at the very end, they come up and they try to measure whether you got a first down or not. And all of that was just there's probably maybe
so many things went wrong before they got to that change.
And I just think when you're talking about 1 millimeter, if you're doing everything else right, whether you're getting a puff or you're 0.5 millimeter back, I don't think it matters. I know there's a lot of endodontists that'll disagree and say, nope, it's got to be this way. If you've done all those other steps right, whether you're a 0.5 millimeter whether you're a millimeter short or millimeter long, whether you're using single cone, whether you're using thermofill, whether you're using warm gutta percha, and this is where a lot of endodontists would disagree with me. But I say, I don't think it matters. I care about everything up to what you just said, is that I shaped it, I found all the canals, which I think is the number one reason for failure. You're not finding all the canals. That's what...
So misanatomy, you say, is the number one cause.
By far, number
what would
one
be number
cause.
two?
I would say number two, it's just if you're like 4 millimeters short. Or this is where thermofill gets a bad rap, is you could open almost any distal canal of a lower molar and you could throw down a thermal carrier and not even clean it at all. So I would say it's underprepared canals, but it's not so much underprepared, it's almost non-prepared canals.
Because they think the obturation is so important.
Yeah, it's not.
It's the shaping.
It's the least important. It's the least important step.
It's the shaping so that you can clean with irrigants.
Yes.
And the obturation is the least significant part.
If a root canal was properly shaped and properly, if you want to say you want to take everything, let's say to a, now this is a big controversy. I don't think it matters whether you want a small apex with a large taper, meaning keeping things at, let's say, a 20 or a 25, 08 or 06, or you want to take everything with a large apex, let's say a 35 or a 40 with a small taper, let's say an 04. To me, it doesn't matter whether how you're shaping it. If you get at least, let's say, a 2008 or a 2506 in most canals, or if you're an 04, if you're using 04s, if you're getting at least to a 30 or a 35, then you've done proper irrigation. All this other controversy, I just think it's just noise. It just goes on and on and on. It's like, look, let's just get the canal shaped properly. Let's use the irrigants properly. Now, do I think a 2004 in a distal root of a lower molar is going to do it? No, I don't. You're probably going to have to take that up to a 2008 or a 2010.
Let's go back to the file. Some people are wondering if an 06 is too much tooth removal, weakening the tooth, so it's setting up down the road for a fracture. And you see some people thinking, maybe I should only use an 04. Do you think that Rotary NiTi in the last 10, 20 years has augured out too much tooth and and 06s is just too much and we're weakening the tooth? Is that part of some of the endodontic failure rates, us over filing out the canals?
I think if you're using an 06 and you're keeping it a 30 or less, again, depending on most of the anatomy, you're going to be fine with a 3006. Now, if you're talking about a lower anterior, 3006 might be a little too much. If you're talking about a mesiobuccal root of a lower molar where you see the root is very thin, where it's, let's say, a 25 millimeter long root, you're probably not going to want to take a 3006.
Well, let me rephrase my question. When you see endodontic failures, you were saying the number one cause of failure is a missed canal.
Correct.
If you saw 100,
or just underprepared,
if you saw 100 endodontic failures, what percent of them do you think were caused by too much of the canal being augured out?
Where I see the failure with it being augured out is where the post space is too large, not from using a 3006.
And would you?
That's not where it's pretty small. I'm not saying that there isn't strip perfs.
Yeah.
What I just described, where you're talking a real
I personally believe, tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Go ahead.
I personally believe the majority of posts that I see in root canals should have never even been placed. I
agree.
I think it's the most overused,
Yeah.
crazy. In fact, what a post, I mean, if you have a 3 millimeter ferrule all the way around,
Yeah.
and then if you're going to do a post, don't make the canal any bigger. If you really have to put a post in there, would you say just fit one in there the size of your gutta percha? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not a big post fan either.
I think you need. I think that's where the majority of the problems are. Now I know again other endodontists they're going to say, no, everything, you should never use an 06. And then you're going to get, it's just, there's so much, I just call it noise. And it's like, I'm not saying that an 06 would never strip perf. It's just, it's so small of a percentage. Where the problems are from the post. That's where we're getting.
I want to tell you my pet peeve with endophiles and going to the gym at Lifetime Fitness. When you look at when you're doing dumbbells or you're doing weights, you know, they go from 5 to 10. Okay,
yep.
Wow, that's a double.
Yeah.
And then it's 10 to 15. That's up 50%. Then it's 15 to 20. That's only up a quarter. And how come the dumbbells? Each dumbbell doesn't have a percentage increase of weight. Yeah. And on the files, it's the same thing. I mean, you start with a 10 file, and then the next one's 15. It's like, damn, that's a huge jump. Then the next one's 20. And then by the time you get to 35, hell, the next bigger file it's hardly any bigger. I mean, it could have just used a 35 and moved it around a little bit. Yeah. Why are files not increase in size on a percentage? Is it just culture and custom, like going to the gym and it'll always be that way?
Your point is absolutely true. And that's where Dr. Herb Schilder, when he came up with the Series 29, that meant every file was increasing 29%. I don't know how
When did he do that?
Oh, that was one of the first files that came out. The Series 29 was probably out in the early 90s, mid 90s for sure. And that was his logic, was just increase it about 29%.
By volume?
By diameter. Now that's where I started to think, and I haven't really pursued it too much, is we really shouldn't be looking at diameter. We should be looking at volume removed, stress on the file. So it should be not increasing a percentage of the diameter. It should be a percentage of the volume removed. And I played with that a little bit. And now watch, now that we've talked about it, you know, on the way home, I'm going to be thinking, okay, pi r squared area, all that.
What were you doing in Phoenix? How did I get the good fortune to see you? You here?
Just with family.
Oh, you're down here vacationing?
Yeah, just
and
with family.
where are you vacationing at?
We're up just north of Scottsdale. There's even though I don't golf, it's mostly because we could bring the dogs. Yeah. There's a place called the Boulders. It's a resort up there.
God,
it's nice up there.
Yeah, I love the Boulders.
But you can bring the dogs, and
my sister Shelley lives up in Cave Creek, north of Scottsdale.
Yeah,
and her husband's been the golf manager up there at a golf course for 15 years. He texted me some pictures of a mama mountain lion with 2 babies.
That's amazing.
And that thing, I swear to God, was so big it absolutely would have killed you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like a lion. I mean, not a lion, a tiger.
No, when and a lot of zoos have this, but like the Albuquerque Zoo, they have like a bridge that the mountain lions can cross from one pen to another, so it goes over you. Now you got to be careful because they'll pee on you just to tick you off. But when they're because it's a caged bridge, obviously enclosed, and when you see them walking across, they look like a tiger. They're you wouldn't have a chance. You wouldn't have a. That's why people go, "Why do you run with your dog without a leash?" You know, the dogs are the first ones to tell you if there's a mountain lion around. They are smelling. They'll at least chase the mountain lion away.
I just think it's funny that here we're on New Year's break, and you're such a maniac that you drove to my house to do a podcast with me in my dining room on a Saturday. These supposed to be an hour long. We're at an hour and 20. The reason I want to interview you so much is because so many dentists think you're a legend. So many dentists love your files. Craig Steichen says you have the best reputation in the world, and he's my best friend in your backyard. But I put up 350 online CE courses on Dental Town, and they've been viewed over 500,000 times. That's amazing. I'm still a big speaker out there, and for 15 years, ever since we launched online CE in Dental Town in 98, all those meeting planners show me Excel spreadsheets where their attendance has just been drifting down and they can't understand it. I think it's all moving to like the University of Phoenix online. I don't think dentists want to close down their office for $4,000 production and then drive and then have to check in and all that stuff. They like this online see, and then their research is showing that the human mind can only absorb info for an hour, and then all these neurotransmitters.
That's why you wanted to keep it at an hour.
Are flush. Yeah, they're all flush, and they need to stand up and go walk, fart, eat something, go to the bathroom.
And like this, it's nice as they can stop. Like right now, like you said, we're coming on an hour and 20, but so hopefully they stopped a few times.
So all this is, I'm begging you, if you put up an online CE course on Dental Town explaining all this, you'd be teaching dentists from here to Kathmandu.
That's what I want to do.
And the thing that
we're going to get it done.
And the thing that makes me almost cry, I mean, it really does, and it has made me cry. I've walked into dental schools in Asia and Kathmandu where, they had, 20 Chinese books that were 20 years old and 15 or 20 French books that are 20 years old, and they're telling me in Kathmandu that they all speak Nepalese. They can only look at the pictures. And then they found Dental Town. And this one dental school, the dean's husband went and fetched a wire, and it goes out like the third-story window, clear down the street. They have all these millions of wires. Yeah. And he wired that thing like 10 blocks to tap into the internet. And Dental Town's the whole curriculum. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in Asia. And
what you've done is amazing, Howard.
And what Al Gore's done with the internet. and
you're second though.
And what's no. And I was in Tanzania, and I mean, I listened to this little woman, Islamic dentist with the veil and sar, and she's on Dental Town. I mean, she was doing United States of America top endo. And she said, I learned it all on Dental Town. And she thought her family sent her to the best dental school in the world. And it was in Dar es Salaam, I forgot the country, Ethiopia or whatever. And she said no. She goes, it was Dental Town. She goes, Dental Town was far better than my dental school, and Dental Town was free. So I think that dentists have when I talk to dentists, I think their biggest thing that they have problems with and they hate is molar endo. In fact, half of my friends in Phoenix, as soon as they start making money, the first thing they give up is molar endo. Yeah. I mean, one of my buddy Bob Savage says that he'd rather be beaten than do a molar endo, and he just thinks. And I feel the same way about pediatric dentistry. I don't know why you become a pediatric dentist, but I'm sure substance abuse has something to do with it.
but as you know, pediatric dentists, they have the formula down.
Yeah, they do.
And it just boom, boom, boom. And it's just like an endodontist when someone says, "How can you do molar endo all day?" I mean,
you'll give us
bang, bang, bang.
You'll give us you'll put some endo in curriculum up there.
100%.
And the other thing that I would really appreciate that, and I think there's 2 million dentists around the world, and I think too many Americans like us, we always think of the U.S. Canadian market, and yes. I don't. The whole North and South America only has 1 billion people. There's 1 billion just in Africa. There's 1 billion 2 in India, and 1 billion 3 in China. And my what turns me on is stealing the greatest information from the top elite Americans like you, and then transferring it on a free iPhone to Africa, Asia, and South America. And I think what the internet and the smartphone are going to do is an arbitrage play. We're every year we're going to lower the extreme difference between, because I saw it when I opened up here in '87. You get a root canal in Phoenix, drive 100 miles down south, cross an invisible line into Mexico, and the root canal is like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And I think the smartphone is going to get rid of that variance.
I would agree with you.
Yeah,
100%.
So did I have any other questions? Oh, and last but not least, did you ever remember my friend Joey Dovkin?
Wonderful person.
He was my roommate in Creighton University in Swanson Hall.
Great endodontist.
He personally tutored half the 9th floor to get through school. I mean, the guy could answer any question in physics, math, chemistry. Yes. I never, not take anything away from you, I never met an endodontist who ate, lived, and breathed endo 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he died last year.
Great loss.
Great loss.
Amazing person, amazing dentist.
So, Joey D, we'll dedicate this podcast to him.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming by on your vacation. Is your wife and children mad at you for...
No, they're probably...
They're still in bed?
No, they're probably still sleeping.
They're probably still sleeping. So just wife and dogs?
No, I have triplets.
You have triplets?
2 boys and a girl.
And how old are they?
They're 12.
No kidding. So you just man, this is the man who gets it done. When he decided to have a family, he just popped it out one time. 3 kids at one time.
Correct. Yeah.
What was that like?
Very interesting the first couple of years.
How long did it take from when 3 babies were born before you slept your first all night 8 hours?
Oh, I'm still not.
You're still not. So they're 12. But seriously, thank you so much on your vacation driving all the way to Albuquerque to my house and doing podcasts. I think you're a rock star. You named your website. And by the way, his website is Root Canal Rockstar. If you want to hang out on message boards, communities with 1,000 endodontists, 5,000 dentists. And if you want to buy root canal files at half the price, it's EdgeEndo.com, EDGE Endo.com. Charles Goodis, you're the man.
Thank you.